Hello, this is Howard Owens, publisher of the Batavian. We're doing another live stream interview for this Monday afternoon. We have on the line today Bill Campbell, who's the VP of Business Development for Chapin International, which is a more than 100-year-old company that started in Oakfields, based here in Batavia. They have locations everywhere, and a little bit of problem there. So anyway, we're going to talk to Bill both kind of how things are going for Chapin, in this economic environment, pandemic world, and then also he's very knowledgeable just about economics and both nationally and internationally as it is. So we'll probably get his thoughts on just some general economic questions. So let's get over here, Bill. So, I don't have the camera set up right. Hold on. There you go. So you're on the screen now. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good. So, Bill, first of all, just let's talk and jump in with Chapin. How have things been going over the past year? Where do things stand for the company right now?
Well, of course, COVID, just like for everybody, has been very, very challenging. So far, the disease hasn't been a huge impactor directly. But the government regulations, what's going on with that, have made things very, very challenging for us. We've got locations. Batavia is, of course, the mothership and our largest location, but we've got factories in 4 other states. So at one point, I think it was every day I had 1 or 2 new executive orders affecting something. So that was a real big challenge. The extra cleaners, sanitizers, all those things. But Chapin went from being primarily a lawn and garden company to a disinfectant company overnight too. So that was interesting, but overall we're getting through, and it's going, I guess, as good as it goes.
That's one of the things I heard, I think, early on, is that your sprayers have become really handy for those looking to do disinfectant work, and that helped out your business.
Yeah, well, it was like I said, we went from where maybe 80% of what we were producing went to the garden or concrete to 80% disinfectant. So even though it was still moving through a lawn and garden channel, everybody was trying to bleach everything. So our product really went fast on that. So that has continued. So we've been very, very busy. And we're happy that our product is able to help in some way during this. But that's been an interesting transition for us. And hopefully by next spring we'll be back to lawn and garden.
So Chapin's always kind of been one of our largest employers, one of our big industrial companies. How's things on the employment front? Have you been able to retain workforce? Are you still looking for people?
No, if you got people who are watching who are looking for work, they should come down. Plenty to do, and I think all shifts again. So no, we're very, very busy. So always need more people at Chapin. So that's been tough, there for a while. Again, not just Batavia, but the other locations, when they were paying bonus money to not work, that made it very difficult for people to see the value in the work. So of course, when you're working here, you've got the 401k, the healthcare, all those things. But if that's something a person doesn't value, there's not a real big incentive to come then.
I know there's a few companies like Chapin that seem to, regularly have openings, even in a time when unemployment is going up. And correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you have jobs that are good paying jobs that, afford somebody on the job training. It doesn't take a lot of prior education or training. Just talk about the challenges of getting people to come to work, and why do you think that those challenges exist here locally?
Well, for a lot of people, I shouldn't say people, young people entering the workforce, you go from high school where, you go to school 180 days a year, you can miss 20 days a year, still graduate. Then when you come to manufacturing, it's, hey, you got to be here every day or it doesn't work. The whole team has to be there every single day. That's really challenging for people who aren't used to that day in, day out. You got to come to work, do those things. So that's very challenging for us. And COVID has made that more challenging in that there's some people, like when the school's closed, they can't do it every day, for whatever reason. So that's really tough. But you can come in here totally green, knowing nothing, as long as you want to put in the effort and work hard, you can move up even fairly quickly internally. Uh, a ton of our employees, not probably half, are internal people who started entry level, and okay, you were trimming, let's have you do some printing. Okay, you did good at that. Let's do quality, move through those things. So Bill Kegler, another local guy, he started on the floor. He's VP of Ops. Deb Suit is a director in sales. She started on the floor. Brandon's head of, can't remember his new title, technical engineering. Started on the floor. So yeah, it's a great place if you want to come and say, hey, college isn't for me. I want to just go work and get the hands-on experience. That's great for us.
My impression is that, if you're working in some fast food job, if you're competing with that level of employment for people, Chapin offers a chance to have career advancement. You mentioned the 401k. I mean, it's a place to go and settle if that's the kind of work you're looking to do. And I'm just wondering, is there a problem getting that word out for people? Do they not understand kind of the opportunity that Chapin affords?
I maybe, but I hope HR is doing a great job. That's their side of the ball. I'm more bring the work in and figure out how to make the work. So that one I don't have a great answer for.
Okay. So want to shift just now to, to kind of more looking at the national, maybe world economy. One of the things I told you we might talk about is just kind of what's your anticipation for the Biden administration on impact on the business climate?
So really overall, the big fear for me and the thing that has everything mixed up is inflation. And, this started prior to the Biden administration, but it looks like it's going to speed up very quickly. So, in 2018, there was about $2 trillion of narrow money in the economy, like real money. That has swollen to almost 3 trillion. Well, at the same time, we shut down economic centers. Dollars divided by output equals dollars worth. So in the last, really since November, we've seen resin prices triple, which is insane. They polypropylene is kind of like probably half the stuff in that room is made out of plastics. It's made out of propylene. It's like tripled in cost. Ethylene's almost doubled. So those forces are brutal, and that kind of ties into a lot of what we're seeing with the next administration, another round of money printing, which isn't good for inflation, of course. $15 minimum wage is in my thought, it's just a way to try and get in front of the inflation. Hey, prices are going to double, so we'll double minimum wage. And, inflation, usually the U.S. gets to kind of skate on it because we're the reserve currency. So normally that would be the case, and has been for probably since the Soviet Union fell. So we really enjoyed a time where we just controlled monetarily basically everything. But with the growth of China during that period now, right, they set the RMB. It's not a floating currency. They set it. So my big concerns are, okay, China sets the price of a sprayer. That's really who sets the market. So, you go to Home Depot, a 1 gallon sprayer, or I'll say Lowe's, even better example. It's $10 for a 1 gallon sprayer, and has been for almost 20 years. So every year we have to get, just to keep up with inflation, 3 or 4% more efficient every single year. Well, if you get to a point, and it looks like we might be moving into that direction, where the U.S. sees really rapid inflation, like in material, 20, 30, 40% a year. But at the same time, the global economy doesn't shift, so China's still going to sell that sprayer for $10. It might now cost me 20 to make it. So those things make me very, very nervous. And a lot of the first rapid fire and executive orders are all things that make that look more likely than less likely. And, we came off of 4 years where things were really good, right? Every year the economy's booming, unemployment's low, things are going real well. COVID rolls in, that just shakes it all up. And it just looks like that's tough. So a lot of these new policies, I'm sure they are very well intentioned, but they're ignoring really what happens to a working person, the person who has worked a little harder, has moved up in a company, that gap between the guy who had to start at, $10 and has worked his way up to 20. Suddenly, if minimum's 15 and I can still only charge, $10 for a sprayer, well, that guy might be at 18 now. So, geez, years of hard work undone. So those are the things I really worry about, and that's very, very challenging unless you have other things like tariffs or some other control. But the U.S. generally doesn't. Even steel's another example. We make metal sprayers, and I was talking to a company that imports wheelbarrows, and they said, "Hey, here's the new price. It went way up." And I said, "Well, what happened?" They said, "Well, China changed the price of steel." And it is. It's just a guy in China decides steel is this much fun now, and I set my currency, which isn't how we operate, but it's a global economy, and you have at least one major actor who gets to play by a separate set of rules. So that's where I get real nervous that the working person's going to get, in the U.S., our exceptionalisms always come from, you got some people at the bottom, a couple people at the top, but most of us are in the middle doing pretty well. And that's going to start to be, well, more of you are getting shoved to the low end. That's not good.
I'll have a follow-up question, but I just want to mention something. All the people that are watching right now, if you have questions you want me to throw in, on Facebook, if you type in a question or a comment, I should see it on the screen I'm looking at now. And if you're watching from the Batavian homepage, you can click through that YouTube screen, and it'll take you to our YouTube page where there's a chat window, and I'll see your question there. So, Bill, what is kind of your confidence level, your percentage in prediction that we're going to see the kind of inflation you're talking about? Is it 50%, 70%? Where in there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have hope Yellen will right the ship. So I think she's a pretty bright lady. And if things get out of hand, she'll do something about it. But short term, for the next year or two, I'm expecting us to see 20, 30% inflation, which is for the U.S. before my lifetime, since something like that happened.
We post the gas prices every week, and I think some people misunderstand kind of why we're posting it. I see that as kind of like a bedrock economic indicator, what oil prices and gas prices are doing, because it's such an important sector of the economy, and a lot that happens in that sector, the rest of the economy follows. And we're seeing, today's report, OPEC is cutting supplies. There's been a 20 or 30 cent per gallon increase over the last few months. And this week it was 5 cents in 1 week, which is, I think, the largest increase I've seen. Does that concern you, and how's that directly impact your business?
Yep, right. So logistic costs have gone nuts. And again, a lot of things going into it. Fuel, perfect example, right? So now that the second pipeline, the XL pipeline is canceled, that's gone. So now everybody knows, hey, we're not going to have that resource available in the U.S., or it's going to be very expensive now because we're going to stick it on, Warren Buffett's trains and drag them to the refinery, or they're going to pump it across and send it to Russia to refine. The oil's not going to get not pumped. It's where's it going, how, and how efficiently. So it's much more expensive. And there, again, like that one, trying to think what it said in the journal, 40,000 direct jobs were lost because that line won't be there, the refineries won't run, and it's going to go to a place that, if you send it to Russia, they don't have the same environmental regulations as us. It's not going to be consumed wisely. And that's an area where it's very, very brutal. And consolidation too, and shipping, shipping containers, a couple of years ago, maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a container to move it. Now you're talking $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 to move a container. And a lot of that has to do with fuel prices. So yeah, as a macro indicator, I like fuel because it affects everybody. I don't care how rich or poor you are, you got to fill up your truck kind of thing. So, and more so if you have less income, it's a larger portion of it. So that's, I think, a good indicator, and sure you do the same things, right? Milk, bread, gas. There's a few basic things. Power, water's a little different. But even food, you look at corn. Corn's gone nuts. Our other business, of course, bird food. So I'm always watching corn, tallow, beef fat, and seed, and those are up 20, 30, 40%. So I think everyone is thinking the economy is going to start heating up a little too much. Stock market, you know, GameStop aside, it's heating up. There's all this cash flowing into it. So that's, and not necessarily being put to use as capital. It's just sloshing around, which isn't good. So sorry, I got a little off track.
That's okay. You brought up the stock market, and I want to come back to that. But a little tangent. You mentioned shipping containers, and an article I read about a month ago said that a combination of what's the Trump trade deals with China, COVID, things are going on. And China came out of COVID. They started in COVID earlier. They came out sooner. They ramped up production. And but countries aren't buying, and so there's all these shipping containers that are like stuck in China. They're not shipping containers aren't moving around rapidly enough to redeploy to other parts of the world, other parts of the economy, and that's one of the things that's hurting a global trade right now.
Absolutely. And then you had the three big container movers, and I apologize, I'm forgetting their names, but they've kind of gotten together, and since that happened, where they said, well, we need to manage the inventory better, prices went up, and I don't know if they're ever going to come back down. So kind of the OPEC thing of, hey, this is how much it's going to cost from now on. Or UPS, FedEx, it's amazing. One guy raises his price, the other guy within 2 days. So when there's only three big carriers left, that's really tough to negotiate with.
You mentioned the stock market, and it just hits on a general economic discussion thing to talk about. One of the interesting things about this recession is how unevenly it's dispersed. There are people out there who are really hurting, even in our own community, across the country. You read the stories, people out of work long term. It's the highest level in several years, the number of people that are long-term unemployed at this point. But the stock market's doing really well because the tech sector, with everybody staying home, is booming. And so we have this really uneven distribution of pain right now, which is unusual.
Yeah, then that's where I say money sloshing about in ways it shouldn't, right? The cornerstone of capitalism is capital being put to work to create more wealth. Like, that's the whole thing. This recession, because it was not what's the right way to put it? A physical recession. Like, it wasn't like all the restaurants suddenly burned down and were destroyed. They just went idle. So, and then at the same time, we pumped cash out. So cash went into the system and the places it should have been going. Restaurants, bars, movies, all those things, right? And you might not think of that as capital in a traditional, like, I go out and buy capital equipment. I buy a blow molder and I'm turning resin into sprayers. But a restaurant's still taking, raw materials, food, and turning it into a better sandwich. That's still a form of capital working. Softer, of course, but that's still a wealth generator. There was a change in material taking place. This recession broke those rules, right? Like, if the restaurant had burned down, we would have used the money to build another restaurant. Well, in this case, it's just sitting there, and we got money. So as you said, well, I guess I'll buy more iTunes, or I'll buy gadgets from China off of Amazon. So that's why this one is sort of without precedent, because there wasn't an underlying actual event. COVID is a real thing, but it wasn't like, oh, everybody in that restaurant got COVID. No, we just told them to go home. Like, so they're still there. And then so money goes into stocks, and then when it goes in the stocks too, it can be invested in odd ways, where you see the value of stocks are less on fundamentals of a company than, hey, this is cool, this is trendy. Like Teslas are neat. I'm going to value them at 1,700 times their asset. Okay, like how could that be worth more than Ford? Like doesn't make sense. So, and I'm not an economist. I'm not an economist by any stretch, but I look at it and say the fundamental underpinnings seem to be broken at the moment.
Oh, and my camera just went away. So I lost my train of thought there with my little technical difficulty. Oh, I know what I want to ask you about. So let's talk about stimulus. Biden's got his proposals. Congress has got both Republicans and Democrats. Those three legs of the stool aren't necessarily triangulated right now. Any thoughts on what should happen with any further stimulus? Should there be more, and how should that be directed?
My thought is targeted, of course. People who are ordered out of a job, of course, you need to do something for them. Like that makes sense. Blanket checks didn't make any sense. Again, going back, I guess, to my school days, I can remember when Bush 2 put out direct checks, no real effect on the economy. Barack put out his, no real effect on the economy. And now we're at potentially a third round. And as I said, it doesn't appear to be helping because you've just got this peanut butter spread of cash, which, again, influences things that I worry about. Inflation, there's just cash in the system where the people you told to go home, like, hey, yes, you got to work with them or work with, like for us, even me personally, a big thing that changed during COVID, the school shut down. So then, okay, I still got to go to work. We're making stuff for COVID. My kids got to go somewhere. So now there's a daycare I got to employ. And they went to work the whole time, but that's expensive. So, help on childcare would have kept people in probably better shape to continue to produce things. So it was it's been very sloppy. I doubt it will get much better, but I'm hoping it gets more targeted, but I don't have a lot of hope. I see it'll probably get past 50 to 50. VP will break the tie and out go more checks.
Well, Bill, we've covered a lot of ground on the economics. I'm kind of we've even kind of hit on trade a bit. Is there anything else that either relevant to Chapin or the local economy you wanted to hit on, or any other economic issues?
I mean, it's really whatever you want.
Well, I know. Well, one of I would be interested in your thoughts if you're willing to discuss it on this proposal for a $15 an hour wage. People tend to focus on what that means for fast food workers employed by places like McDonald's. They don't necessarily talk about Chapin. I mean, you're a good sized company, but you're not this huge multinational company. It's going to affect you differently than a big company, a much bigger company. And then there's a lot of small businesses in towns, restaurants and whatnot, that it's going to have a very different effect than it will have on McDonald's. And then, Batavia is very different from a major metropolitan area. So just kind of what are your thoughts on trying to push this through?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit on it, right? $15 in New York City probably isn't enough to survive. $15 in Batavia isn't bad. And right, again, on a national level, the average income for a working American is $15 an hour today. That's just dead center. So I get it, but I feel, again, that has to do with inflationary practices. And it's, you said, for us directly, it's not that big of a deal. We pay fairly well, so my direct costs, not a big change. Even domestically, again, if I said only Chapin, that's the only thing I care about. Yeah, for me, it's fine because it'll probably, all my competitors will have to pay more. Nothing changes. So that part, okay. But that's not what I concern myself with. What I concern myself with is, okay, if we're paying everybody 15 and like you said, gas is going to go up then to $5, because, hey, there's more cash and all the guys who work there are going to want more. A pizza is going to cost $30. All of those other things are going to get messed up. That's because nothing's free, right? Again, dollars divided by output. So if you just say we're going to give everybody more dollars, but our output doesn't dramatically change, no value. Um, it's not there. And my big concerns are, hey, and then I'm going to have China who's going to say, hey, we're going to keep the RMB at, this price, and we can just grind down manufacturing. We'll just make it so you can't afford to manufacture. Uh, those are the things I worry about. Those things are what, because I can't control that, right? And anybody in the U.S., if we're all playing by the same rules, Chapin is great, no problem. We can do well, we grow every year, behavior is great. But when I get to, okay, I'm over here at Chapin playing football, and then the other guy's playing by a totally different set of rules, asymmetric, right? Asymmetric problems are always the toughest problems. Like when I was in the service, we had Afghanistan, we have this huge U.S. military, and it's great. Then you have to find like a guy running around in the mountains. It's terrible. When you get into those asymmetric things where you're playing two different games, that's when stuff gets.
Well, one of my concerns for small businesses is you mentioned, the pizza going up to $30, but you don't get there right away. Your wage costs go up, but as a small business owner, you're going to worry about how fast can I raise prices to keep up without losing customers, because there's going to be a uneven distribution of the economic impact. So I don't know how much, for you, it sounds like you can absorb a lot of this because you're paying most people more than $15 anyway. Although, like you mentioned earlier, the guy making $20 go, hey, wait a minute. Now this new guy next to me is making 15, only 5 less than me after I've been working here 10, 15 years. He's going to want more money.
Yep. And that's where you see, again, kind of a lot of the economic policies that are moving forward, again, really crush that person who's done the right things. That kid who went to GCC for 2 years, did his first 2 years, because said, boy, I can go here, I can get same classes at a much lower price, and then I'll transfer to an RIT or whatever. And he works his butt off for 5 years, pays off his student loans, and then the engineer sitting next to him racks up $250,000 in debt, and then just waits for loan forgiveness. So, geez, the person who worked hard gets punished, where the person who made poor decisions, well, they just hope it kind of works out. And that's where that wage change becomes difficult. You might have a really great server getting big tips and stuff and saying, hey, I make $25, $30 an hour because I'm a great, server. And then when it goes up to $15 and now, your sandwich costs 20, going, hey, I can't tip. You're already making enough money. So that good person will stop getting tips and the terrible person will get paid this time. So any of those things that break down rewarding hard work, good use of capital, responsibility, those are all the things I worry about long term. And I'm in Chapin's very old school in that we're still a manufacturer. You got to come every day. You got to do real things. You got to deliver product. Versus, like you said, the tech sector, I can't even figure out what underpins it. It's just like doing things and stuff. So that is where I get worried. In some place like Batavia, where we have a lot of great restaurants, we have a lot of entry level work that you can move up to. How fast can someone raise their wages? And then say like, hey, what happens if nobody buys food anymore from me? So, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting off topic.
That's okay. So, let's kind of try to find a positive note to close on. What are your optimistic signs? What still gives you hope?
People are still, we still have a lot of great workers. That part's going real well. I think some of the movement back to the United States that started in manufacturing, really like 2 years ago, I think that'll continue, which is good. That's real good. I much rather build stuff in the U.S. than anywhere else. So that part's real well. Automation is starting to get closer to where they told me it would be in high school. Still no flying cars, but those things are getting better. We're getting closer to a point where we can produce more with fewer people and make life better. And really, like the vaccine was something for me My wife works over at UMMC, and really just incredible, right? So for all the maybe bad times, the scientific community got together and pounded out a vaccine in like 9 months when it would normally take years. So that tells me, American ingenuity is still alive and well, maybe suppressed, but it's there, and if unleashed, it can do it. So I think, at the end of the day, America is still exceptional. It's still here. We just gotta, figure out how to use it.
Great, Bill. I think that's a good note to end on. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. It's a fascinating discussion, so I really appreciate your willingness to jump in.
No problem. Thanks, Howard. Always a good time, and if you ever need us, we're right here.
Yep, just a few blocks away from me. So look forward to seeing you out and about after the pandemic passes here.
Thanks, Howard.
Thanks. Thank you. So this is Howard Owens at the Batavian. We're signing off on this interview. Again, thanks to Bill Campbell from Chapin, talking a little economics, both for his company locally and nationally. So we'll have more live stream interviews this week. Look for the